Hello and welcome to Industrial Residential Arts Centre's Facebook page and today's episode of The Man Who Knows Everything. That is me, I am he. I hope you had a great bank holiday weekend. Now the reason it was the bank holiday is because obviously on Friday was 75 years since the end of, since VE Day. Come on to that in a minute. So, what the man who knows everything is every day I'll come on here at 1 o'clock and I give you 10 facts about a particular topic, and then I'll give you another topic to research for the next day. So I'm going to give you 10 facts and you can cross off your facts on your lists. If you've got a fact that I don't give, then technically you have defeated the man who knows everything. But as I always say, there are only facts that I don't give, not facts that I don't know. So as I mentioned, Friday, just gone, was the 75th anniversary of VE Day. And in honour of VE Day, we decided that today's topic would be 10 facts about World War II. So, here we go. Get ready to check them off. Oh, can people still see me? I've got a little message saying, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. Maybe I just can't see it. I'm going to carry on regardless and we'll see what happens. So, fact number one is that World War II lasted from 1939. Hello, Jane. Jane, can you just tell me, can you see me? Because I can't see myself. Now, normally I can, but I've just got an error message saying, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video, but it looks as if I'm still live. I just can't see myself. So if you could stick a little message in the comments, Jane, and let me know, that'd be great. But I'm going to carry on regardless. Perfect. You can see me. I just can't see myself. So, fact number one is that World War II lasted from 1939 right the way through to 1945. And it began on the 1st of September 1939 when German troops invaded Poland. And on September 3rd, the UK declared war with Germany, and it was announced by our Prime Minister called Neville Chamberlain, who was Prime Minister at the time. Now, the political party in Germany was led by Adolf Hitler, and he had a party called the Nazi Party. So those are some key facts about World War II. That was fact number one. Fact number two is that obviously it was a world war, so there were loads of other countries that were involved in the war, and they each took sides, either with the Allies or with Axis. So the main Axis countries were Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the main Allies were Great Britain, the United States, France, and the Soviet Union, who we now call Russia. So those were the two sides that were fighting in the war. You either put yourself in the Allies or you put yourself in Axis. Fact number three is all about the role of women, because the role of women changed a lot because of World War II. So back in the day, people used to think that women should look after the home and raise children, and that was kind of it. And it was the men that would go out to work. But obviously, during the war, the men all went off to fight in the war, and there was nobody to do the jobs at home. And there was loads of other work to be done, such as working in factories to make things for the war effort. And so the only people that could do it were women. And obviously, at that time, women were able to leave their homes, go out to work, and they proved to people that the women could do things that just as well as the men could. So it changed people's idea about what women could do. So the women took over the so-called men's jobs, while the men went off to fight in other countries. So fact number four is about the Battle of Britain. Now, the Battle of Britain was a battle between the German Luftwaffe and the Royal Air Force, and it was the first ever battle that was only fought in the air. It was made up of lots of air battles, and it lasted from the 10th of July through to the 31st of October 1940, and it was entirely fought in the air by planes that could fire at each other. So that was the first ever air battle. Fact number five is also to do with the air, and it's also to do with planes. About a time called the Blitz. Now, the Blitz was when London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights from the 7th of September 1940. So German planes would fly over London for 57 nights in a row and would drop bombs on the capital. Lots of other cities were bombed as well, but London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights. And at this time, because they wanted to protect people, they could go to air raid shelters or they could use public ones, such as underground tube stations. And around about 180,000 people were sheltered in underground tube stations around about that time. Now, the total civilian deaths during the Blitz, during that period from 57 nights, was around about 40,000 people. And by the end of the war, about 60,000 people, British civilians, had died as a result of German bombing. Now, obviously, we talk about the Blitz as what happened in London, but there was retaliation from the Allied forces, and the British air raid on the first British air raid on a concentrated civilian area in Germany was on the 16th of December 1940 as well. And overall, German civilian deaths totaled as many as 600,000 people as a result of Allied bombing. Fact number 6, because the cities were so dangerous, they had to evacuate a lot of people. So because the cities were getting bombed, they wanted to move vulnerable people to safe places. So they would move them out into the countryside so that they wouldn't get bombed. Now, obviously, if you've got relatives or if you were wealthy, you could just go and move somewhere else. You could go and stay with some relatives maybe out in the country. Some people moved to different countries entirely for a period because they could afford to do it. But if you couldn't, or if you didn't have any relatives, you would have to find somewhere to go. And the government organised evacuation. So people in their own homes in the countryside would take in children and people who were being evacuated from the cities. And the first evacuations took place on the 31st of August 1939. And 1.5 million children, pregnant women, and other vulnerable people like the disabled were evacuated to countryside locations in just 2 days. But there were no big bombings then. So it was the first few months of the war. And as a result, by early 1940, a lot of those people came home. Then they were actually evacuated again when the Blitz started in late 1940. And then again, there was more evacuations in 1944 when Germany attacked Britain with flying bombs. So there was actually several periods of evacuation. Fact number 7 is all to do with food and rationing, because obviously during the war, certain foods were scarce, because if you import loads of food from different countries and that food can't get into the country anymore, it's very scarce and it's not very fair if everybody just panic buys. As we might have seen, there was a bit of a lack of loo roll recently, and pasta and flour. Nobody could get hold of it. So to make things fair back in the war, they gave people ration books, and you would only have a certain amount of certain things. And rationing started actually with petrol. And it was a way of ensuring the fair distribution of food and other commodities. And later, after petrol, it began with things like butter, sugar, bacon, eggs, those kind of things. And eventually, most foods were covered by the rationing system, with the exception of fruit and vegetables. So ration books were given to everybody in Britain who registered with a particular shop. And when something was bought in that shop, the shopkeeper would mark that purchase off in the book to make sure everybody got a fair share. Rationing actually ended way after the war, so the war might have ended in 1945, but rationing was still in place right the way up to 1958. Now, obviously, some of those measures might have been eased along the way, but rationing didn't come to an official end until 1958. Fact number 8, something about a very difficult period during the World War, but it's a very important part of it. That is the role of concentration camps. As I mentioned earlier on, we talked about Adolf Hitler, who was the leader of the Nazi Party. And one of their key things was that they were very anti-Semitic, which meant that they didn't like Jewish people, to the point where they wanted to get rid of them entirely. So Jewish people were sent to what was called concentration camps, and they were kept in very poor conditions, and they were forced to work, and lots of times they were actually killed there as well. So it's a very sad time for all of those people. And as a result of that, that brings me on to fact number 9. If you were a Jewish person, you were obviously very frightened. And again, some Jewish people were able to move to countries where it was a little bit safer. They were able to go and visit their relatives elsewhere and stay there and hopefully make a new life for themselves. But if you couldn't do that, you had to stay put. And so lots of Jewish people were really frightened. And so there were lots of people who tried to help them by hiding them in their houses, creating safe spaces for them so they wouldn't be found and wouldn't be sent off to the concentration camps. And one of the most famous ones was obviously Anne Frank. Now, you might have heard about Anne Frank because she was a little girl who was hiding out in a house in the Netherlands. So, and she's diaries have been published of her time hiding out. So diary was written over the course of 2 years, and diaries detail the time that her family spent hiding during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. So her family had moved into a secret annex of the premises of a company that was owned by her dad in order to escape capture by the Nazis. And they lived there with another Jewish family named the Van Pels. And then later on, they lived there with a Jewish dentist who was named Fritz Pfeffer. And she was first given the diary when she was for her 13th birthday. And it was just a few weeks before her family went into hiding. And her dad had taken her to pick up her diary on the 11th of June, and she began writing in it on the 14th of June and detailed all of her time hiding out in them premises. So, my final fact about World War II is that obviously we celebrated VE Day on Friday, just gone, the 8th of May, because that's when World War II ended in Europe. But World War II officially ended completely in September, the 2nd of September 1945, which was when finally Japan surrendered to the Allied forces. And so it carried on for a few months after it ended in Europe. So it officially ended on the 2nd of September 1945, which meant that all in all, World War II lasted for 6 years and 1 day. So those are all of my 10 facts about World War II. So if you've got a fact that I don't give, get an adult to help you, stick it in the comments below. If you've got a topic that you want to challenge me on, you get an adult to stick it in the comments as well. But for the time being, I'm going to give you tomorrow's topic. So I mentioned earlier on about the changing role of women, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the suffragettes. So do some research. You might know about them already. You might have some books at home you can look up, or you can get an adult to help you look up on the internet. But I'm going to give you 10 facts all about the suffragettes and the women's suffrage movement tomorrow. So join me again at 1 o'clock tomorrow for 10 facts about the suffragettes. I'll see you then. In the meantime, stay home, stay safe, stay creative. Ta-ra,